Cool. So we're going to go on to introductions and conclusions now. And the way this is going to work is we're going to run through what you need to include for both sections, and we're going to look at a past student's responses to see exactly what they did in order to get, I guess, full marks or an example of good practice for both of these aspects of an essay. So starting with the introduction, then they are necessary in all of the questions apart from paper 1 question 3, that comparison question, and the one where you have to write an opinion article, because that question is very different to everything else. You're writing in a journalistic manner. You'll be starting off with an anecdote or something like that. Okay. The main purpose behind it is that you are developing your line of argument and that you are proving to the examiner that you know your stuff and that you can write a coherent essay. All right. I tend to tell students to split their introductions into 3 distinct sentences or sections. The first section should be a general statement that is related to the question. Ideally, use some buzzwords from the question as well. And you're going to see that in the example that we look at in a minute. The student had the question that we looked at in a previous video, how language change reflects social change, and they offer up a brief summary of what that is and what ideas that can refer to. Once you've done that, you then need to talk about points that agree with the statement, and these are things that you are definitely going to be talking about in your essay. You're essentially putting trust in the examiner, so that they can read your essay and they can go, okay, I trust that this person is going to talk about emoji, and sure enough, you do. Okay, so again, that all helps with your line of argument. So you might want to word it along the lines of evidence throughout history, such as the Norman conquest or the rise of the internet, suggests that language change is in fact impacted by social change, something along those lines. And then you want to do the exact same thing to end off your introduction with points to disagree with the statement. And again, you need to be incorporating stuff that you will use in your essay. Okay, so let's take a look at our example for our introduction very quickly. Just pause the video for a few seconds, read through that intro there, and think about what is the student doing that is good practice. Cool. Welcome back. So let's go through. This student has ticked off all of the boxes for what I think is a good introduction. They've started off with a broad definition that is related to the topic, and they've also included that buzzword social change as well when they talk about an event in society that makes a difference to an individual or a population's lifestyle. This could really be more linguistic focused and language focused, but it's still a solid example of what that beginning part should look like. They then start to talk about things that can support the statement. Their main line of argument that they're going to talk about is historic social changes like the Norman conquest, but also more recent technological changes. So they are teeing up what they're going to talk about just fine in that first section. And then they've used a buzzword to kind of connect their agreement and their disagreement together. It's this word, however. Okay. Use this word in your introductions, in your evaluative essay introductions, to show that you are evaluating right from the get-go. And then this person goes on to talk about the fact that language reflects thought processes and all of those things like that. So it's a different line of argument that they're going for there. Okay, so that is what your introduction should look like. Let's move on to a conclusion. So conclusions aren't necessary in all of your questions, like with the introductions. In fact, it's only your child language essay and this question that you're really going to be incorporating one. The reason for that is that you've got more time on these questions. In representation, you really don't have a lot of time, so you need to go straight into what it is you need to do for those questions, equally with language discourses and all the rest. But certainly for child language and evaluative essay, a good conclusion will get you marks for AO1. And what you're basically doing is you're summing up your argument at the end. So ultimately, what is your perspective? What is your viewpoint? What have you looked at throughout your essay? But the main thing that you need to talk about, and this is, if you can get this idea into your head and you can articulate it in an essay, this is the thing that examiners are looking for. You need to make it clear that it's very, very difficult to boil language down to one factor. It's such a complex, multifaceted thing that it is problematic to say that language is the words that people use is just a result of their social group, or that their accent completely determines their intelligence or their identity and things like that. We know that language is so much more than that. The way that we talk is based off of our social groups, our age, our ethnicity, our gender, all of those different things. And equally, with this statement that we've just looked at, language change reflects social change. Well, that's a very kind of binary perspective to have. We know that language change is quite complex. It's random, it's arbitrary. There are major events that happen that significantly, forcefully impact language. That's the thing that you need to make clear in your conclusion. It's difficult to boil language down to just one factor. So if we go over to our essay here, and again, pause the video, read through that conclusion. What do you think the student has done well? Cool, welcome back. So again, this person has made it very clear that it is problematic to boil language down to just one kind of thing, right? They say that some aspects of language change can directly reflect social change, because things like the internet did have a significant impact, but it is not the sole reason for language changing. As they say at the end, it can be impossible to explain or predict language change, as it is a natural process. Okay, so they're at the end, they're ultimately saying that social change as well as other factors are the reasons why language changes. So they're making it very, very clear to the examiner, I'm not it's almost the annoying response of sitting on the fence and saying, look, this is too complex for me to ultimately answer. I've given you my perspective, but we don't actually know what the answer is, which is a bit anticlimactic, but that is what the examiners are after. And if you go on to university, that's what university lecturers want from you, is to be tentative and exploratory in your views on things. Okay, so those are the key ideas that you need to write a decent introduction and to write a decent conclusion.